some NBA talk with Kurt Helin of NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network you can hear at NBCSportsRadio.com. Kurt, welcome back. As the Sixers are the one team in the East that is just kind of sitting around and waiting, and were you surprised that they were able to get out of that Heat series? I don't want to say easy, but in 5 games. It was a tough fight, but they got out in 5.
Actually, I predicted them in 5 with as long as Embiid came back in the first couple of 2 or 3 games, just because he changes that dynamic so much. And I knew that I knew that it caused all sorts of problems for the Heat because they weren't going to be able. Hassan Whiteside both couldn't stop him, and they're frankly a little bit better when he's not playing. Olynyk's not your perfect center, but he spaces the floor and does some things. As much as Whiteside puts up some raw numbers and blocks some shots, you can cause all sorts of problems with them when he's on the floor. So it was a good first-round test, though, because that's a disciplined team. They're physical. They defend. And the Sixers didn't lose their heads. I think that was the best part of it. I mean, their rookies played well, but they played mature basketball, and that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned, Embiid coming back into that series. I mean, if he doesn't come back, do you think the Sixers still get out of that rather easily? I don't know. I keep saying easily because they get out in 5, but it was a hard-fought battle. But was Embiid coming back really the turning point of that series?
It was to me. Look, I still think they probably get out, but it goes 6, maybe 7 games. I think it's it's just harder. He really messed up their ability to get to the rim. Offensively, he was, by the last game in particular, he started to find a groove a little bit, and he had some good points. But defensively, he really just took away a lot of what they wanted to do inside, and that's not a Miami team with a ton of high-end talent. They have to get their points off the system. They have to get Goran Dragic going to the rim and some other guys kind of attacking. And if they don't have that, if they can't get transition buckets, if they can't get those easy ones going to the rim, a lot of things fall apart for them.
Tonight it will be Boston and Milwaukee. Boston obviously up. They need a win, finish this out. If they win, they'll play the Sixers Saturday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. So can Milwaukee hold home court and send this thing back to Boston?
I kind of think they will. I mean, if you've watched much of this series, the Bucks at home played with a just very different defensive energy, actual defensive energy, as opposed to whatever they do in Boston half the time. They make fewer mistakes mentally. They are very long, and they're very athletic, and they've got some height to get out and challenge stuff. And, Boston maybe can win this if they keep hitting tough shots. You've got, Jaylen Brown has become one of those guys who just knocks down difficult shots.
Right.
But at home, I think you see their role players were just way more comfortable. Thon Maker was phenomenal at home. Other guys have stepped up like that. Middleton was better at home. I don't know if they're going to get that on the road, but they're home tonight, and I think that they're behind their fans. They'll win tonight and then force a Game 7 on Saturday, which will be fascinating.
Better matchup for Philly, Boston or Milwaukee? Now, I know you get home court with Milwaukee, so it's got to tilt a little bit to that, but take the home court out. Who matches up better with Philly?
I'd still say Milwaukee. You would rather face Milwaukee. Yes, look, they would be the one team that brings an elite player to the dance in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, he is a top 5 NBA player, but like you said, A, you get home court. B, they're just not disciplined. They don't play a good system. Boston is a better version of Miami in the sense that they are not really going to beat themselves. They are going to make plays, and they bring more talent. I mean, Miami doesn't have anybody as good as Al Horford. It's a better defensive team in Boston. Jaylen Brown's, like I said, and Jason Tatum are making plays. So they're sort of the same in that they're a system team, but they're just a better version of it. I don't know. There really isn't a system in Milwaukee, and when they get a coach next year who puts one in, they'll be a lot more dangerous.
Cleveland, big shot LeBron last night, the block that everybody's talking about, then the 3 down the other end. Is that enough for Cleveland to maybe get out in 6? Or is this coming back to Cleveland this weekend?
I think it's coming back. I think that you're going to see a better performance out of Victor Oladipo. I mean, we can talk about, look, LeBron's LeBron, man. I mean, he has to carry that team right now, and that the load on him, if it is Cleveland and Philly in the conference finals, if we get that far, at some point I get that LeBron's not really human, like he's a T-3000 Terminator or something. But that said, at some point this load has to catch up with him, doesn't it? I mean, even in the playoffs, just
right.
How much he has to do for this team every time down after playing 82 games. And there's plays where he's just, I mean, he played 46 minutes in game 4, and he was just gassed. Like, there were plays where he was just coming down and throwing the ball to Jordan Clarkson and hanging out at half court and not getting involved in the offense because he just physically didn't have it anymore. He needed to catch his breath, and they can't rest him. So that's an interesting series. He's got to carry so much for them that, you know, I think that the Pacers win Game 6, and I'll still take LeBron at home in Game 7. I just don't think he'll let them lose. But you get to a Game 7 and anything can happen.
Absolutely. Kurt Helin is with us. A couple quickies. Toronto, they're up 3-2. They got to go to Washington here. The Wizards, you know, not your typical 8 seed. They did have the Wall injury that kind of slid them down, and they're giving them a fight. Yeah. But does Toronto get out of this series?
I think Toronto gets out of this series, probably going to go 7. The Wizards, I might as well be at a roulette table and put some money down on 35 or whatever. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen with the Wizards game to game, night to night. I don't think they do either. They did get better play at home. I think there's some desperation behind them. And like you said, they're pretty talented for an 8 seed. Injuries really kind of held them back this year. So I would say it's going to go 7 if you made me guess, but which Wizards team shows up night to night is just random.
We saw the 8 seed in the West get bounced last night. Houston advances, and then there's Oklahoma City, Utah, where if you were on Twitter last night, Oklahoma City was breaking up. The season was over. It was all done, and then they came back and won last night. But will they get out of this first round? Utah still leads that series.
I don't think so. Utah's got to treat Game 6 like Game 7, don't they? They
you would
can't
think.
Go back to Oklahoma City. Yeah, this is the one they have to win. But I think they can. I mean, a lot of things went wrong for them in that game, and at the peak of it, they got to keep Rudy Gobert on the floor. That run starts when Rudy Gobert gets in foul trouble, and they have to sit him. And then, you know, he comes in and picks up the 5th foul, and he's got to go kind of back out for a while. When he's on the floor, they're dominant. When he's off the floor, they start getting to the rim and making some plays. They've got to keep him on the floor. But I think at home you'll get, you know, some of the role players for you know, you'll get another good night out of Rubio or you know, Derek Favors will have a big night. Some of the role guys will step up for Utah. The other thing to watch in that series, by the way, do they bench Carmelo Anthony? That run came without Carmelo Anthony. A lot of it, man. He's terrible. They're minus 9.7 per 100 when he's on the floor in this series. Do they sit him? I mean, do they give him the, hey, here's 5 minutes at the start of the game. All right,
right.
Go bench. Kind of treatment. They've got to. If they keep playing him, they're in trouble.
Kurt Helin, NBC Sports Radio. Check him out at NBCSports.com, the 24/7 live sports network. You can listen to it at NBCSportsRadio.com. The Celtics take on the Bucks tonight. If the Celtics win, it will be Sixers-Celtics Saturday night, 8 o'clock, right here on 97.3. Kurt, thanks, pal.
Thank you. Take care.